Before we start, bear this in mind. The whole first section of this is an opera. So what you want to do is, let's be brave. Go too far. It's attitudes. It's bigger. When you take her by the arms, really, you know, it's big stuff.
We rehearsed in Lambeth from 10 in the morning till 1, and then broke for lunch. And by 1 o'clock every day, I'd done what I intended to do with that day.
And then when he breaks and sings his ballad, all of that becomes very real. It'll be realer if everything's very unreal preceding it.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of 3.5 weeks, we had the whole show on its feet, and everybody came to look at it, and we put it together, and Andrew had popped in and out to deal with musical problems, and there wasn't much change in dialogue.
It's one of the very few musicals that I've been involved with that went into rehearsal, and in rehearsal, normally with a musical, things change, but not with the Phantom.
Okay, we'll go right on from where we left off.
The only sequence we worked on and altered at all was Masquerade, which we didn't think worked first time around. And the melody was the same, but we didn't think it quite worked. So we reconstructed that, and that was the only thing.
Things kept going wrong in previews, so we were desperate that things would go right. But what it did was it took the spotlight off music, lyrics, and performances. You know, it suddenly became, as shows often do, during technical rehearsals and during previews, it becomes about the set. And actually, Hal, when we went into the theatre, I remember him turning to me during some catastrophe or other, and there were plenty, he said, this is the bit I like best, it's stage management.
We were trying to make things work all the time. The company came on stage and not all the scenery was working, and we would go, we can get this far in the show, and then you've got to skip to that scene whilst you try and make this piece of scenery work. And I have to say that the contractors were working round the clock. There were people who were sleeping in the theatre and working overnight whilst we rehearsed during the day.
Okay, good. And then you see that?
There were a number of special effects that Hal cut during the bit where they descend into the Phantom's lair. There was a horse. They were meant to go down on a horse. Not a real one, a pretend one.
I always regret the marvellous herd of rats with red eyes that were dragged along like a very bad pony and trap show.
My best design was not accepted by the director. He had his image, fine, whereby the Phantom would come down singing Masquerade, and then the whole costume and the stick would twirl up into the air, and he would not be in it, despite the fact he'd been singing. But the director wanted him to be seen to go down to the underworld, and they had this huge trapdoor, which I reduced a bit. Well, you reduced a lot, because magicians know about trapdoors, don't they?
There were the live doves that were supposed to fly across in the roof scene. They would never fly to where they're supposed to go. They just flew off and hit the walls of the theatre. And I remember Hal watching it and going, we can't do this. This is just horrible.
With the vanish at the end, he sits in a chair and gets covered over with a cloth, you know, and the cloth is there. You can see him moving, and the crowd sort of, a bit frightened, creep up and eventually whip the cloth off, and he's not there at all. And even there, I did want the mask to be just floating in space, but the director wanted it on the chair.
The stage management of the show, it's like any conjuring trick, which in a way the show is about a conjuring trick, that if it isn't effortless, you'll never be sucked into it.